You're listening to Relatable with Stephanie Michele, only on LA Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Relatable. I am your host, Stephanie Michele. And if you've been listening to the show, you have probably heard me ask each guest to share what's top on their mind and their hearts as just a way to get through the distractions that might be in the way of us having a really good conversation. So today, I'm going to share my own distraction today as an opening for the show. And this is a big one. This is really distracting me right now. I'm having a hard time not thinking about it, so I'm going to put it out there. So recently, I was dating a man, and that's not the shocker. That sounded funny how I said it. Recently, I was dating a man, period. The end, no. So recently, I was dating a man that told me that because of our strong connection, or because he was having so much feelings for me, that he he couldn't see me anymore. He wanted to stop talking. And of course, in this conversation were things like, I'm not ready. I have things I need to take care of. There's a fear that he might have to move. So there was that kind of talk in the conversation. And to those kinds of things, I'm like, who doesn't have them? I'm going to do something that nobody does in LA and reveal my age. I'm 44. At this point in my life, I don't expect to connect or meet somebody and have everything just fit perfectly. I mean, we all have stuff. So I understand having stuff. What I don't understand is running away from something that feels good or a good connection. And whether it's true or not, or whether he was using it as a tactic to blow me off because he felt differently, I really don't know. All I know is I'm feeling pretty sad about it, that I'm not going to be able to explore that connection. And why I'm so sad about it is connected to who I am, my core values and belief. And one of those things brings me to what I'm wearing today, to the shirt that I'm wearing. So I'm wearing a shirt today that says Gracist. And this is a new term that I just discovered. And when I did, and I'll tell you how I discovered it in a sec here. When I did, I realized that out of all the titles in the world, this is the thing that I identify with the most, because I love the idea of grace. I believe in it wholeheartedly. And the definition of grace for me is it's just the influence of spirit that's interacting that's being used through people to strengthen and regenerate them. And grace, typically we hear it in religious terms. I am Christian. I'm not using it in a Christian context necessarily in this statement. I believe grace is available for everybody. I believe, the idea of having an inspirational connection with somebody or a conversation, that's a real thing. And it's not always just between the two people. It's something bigger. I really believe in that. So the idea of not pursuing that connection really is just so against everything that I stand for. Grace is something that I want to experience more in the world. And I want to give it as much as possible. And so this is the thing that I identify the most with, is being a gracist. Feeling connected to another human being is so precious to me. I also know that experiencing connection firsthand, or strong connections, those are the ones that have the potential for most grace to flow through. And sometimes this can feel like challenge, but I also know that that's where incredible growth comes into play too. So even though my heart is experiencing a little brokenness right now, I will not stop valuing connection or believing in grace. And as a gracist, I will continue to advocate and facilitate grace. And of course, this just doesn't mean that I'm going to blindly pursue good feelings. I know there's you have to be smart about it. I know there's bad people in the world. I also know there's good people that are just being reckless with their hearts, and maybe they don't intend to hurt others, but they can cause a lot of harm. So I'm aware of that. But being a gracist to me means leaning into grace as a way to protect myself and guide me and keep my heart open. Because the alternative of that is just not an option for me. It's not who I am. My expression is an exploration of expanding my heart. That's who I am at the truest form. So I am a Gracist. I'm going to tell you more about where you can get this shirt at the end of the show. And I have to say something else about how I even found out about this. So I often say that we need to connect more in person. I actually have to thank the internet and Instagram, and particularly for finding the shirt and the creator of the shirt. So I'm giving a shout out to Chaz Hoffler from Dream Alive. Without Instagram, I wouldn't have found him and the shirt. And so, there are good connections that can happen through online too. So enough about the shirt, but a good segue into, we are going to be talking more about fashion today. I now need to talk about my jacket. So I'm actually wearing the jacket, and I hope we can see this. There's some artwork on this. We're going to talk more about it. I'm also wearing this lovely man's jacket from his fashion line. So with that being said, I'm going to introduce my guest today, Eric Coly. Eric spent his early career in finance between the investment advisory and investment banking world. While attending UCLA Anderson Graduate School, Eric was triggered with a deep feeling of dissatisfaction and uncertainty about his career path. After a year of self-examination, he was clear about his desire to enter the world of fashion. Influenced by his grandmother and his mother and his upbringing in West Africa, Eric was driven to create a fashion line that would give back in some way. In 2013, he launched Dessein with a mission to provide the opportunity of education to underprivileged girls from Africa. Each piece in the collection features artwork like this from the girls, and a portion of the proceeds from the sales from the collection go to their education. So girls' education. Wow, that's amazing.
Thank you.
So welcome, Eric. We have a lot to talk about: fashion,
Yes.
social consciousness.
We do.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me, by the way. Thank you for having me.
Come on. Look, that smile enough is the reason here. I hope people are watching and not listening, but that smile's enough to have you here, so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
So like you heard me share my distraction so we could, so I could be fully present to you and the conversation that we're about to have. Is there anything that you want to get off your chest before we get into our interview today?
Wow.
So many things. I could see so many things just where there's there's millions of caption bubbles over Eric's head right now.
Well, maybe one of them could be the fact that in one's focus, in one's quest for happiness, there could be or there might be challenges that are louder than they appear to be.
Yeah.
And the ability to be able to blindly working towards that goal is worth the effort. So personally, as it affects me, these past 4 years in trying to do this, there's been challenges which we'll talk about, I'm sure, later.
Yeah.
But those distractions are still making a noise, and luckily I've been able to find it in me to keep on pursuing that goal of mine. That's a pretty big distraction, by the way.
So if I'm hearing you right, so you're saying, there's always distractions.
Correct.
And some of them, maybe help you work harder or see something more clearly. So you're just aware of them. You give attention to the distractions, but keep moving on.
Yes.
I like it. I think that's all we can do, right?
Of course, yes.
Yeah, that's all we can do. So, all right. Well, distractions are not necessarily bad. Distractions, you need to give some time to them. Probably can help guide you is, I think, a good lead into our conversation. So hopefully, did I say it right when I said it?
Well, it's Le Dessein.
Le Dessein.
Yeah, Le Dessein. It's a rather hard noun to pronounce. Those French people just made it so difficult.
We love those French people. We like their food.
Yes, indeed. Yes,
and their fashion.
That too, yes.
Yeah, we like their fashion.
Yeah, so it's pronounced Le Dessein.
And what does it mean, Eric?
So Le Dessein, the way it's spelled, it means a project.
Okay.
But phonetically, it means a design. It means a design. So it's actually a double entendre. It's actually a play on words. If a kid draws something, it's called un dessin, le dessin. But our endeavor,
like this.
Yes.
Okay.
So the endeavor of the brand is about achieving a project. So we put the two together, and so the way it's pronounced and the way it's written and spelled it actually means an endeavor, but also means a project as well, and a design. So it actually came, this is funny enough, in my dreams about 4 years ago. I felt like Oprah for like a second when that came in my dreams. But yeah, that's
you had your aha moment in your dream.
I had an Oprah moment, actually, Oprah. So yeah, that's the meaning of it.
Okay.
And though it's pretty hard to pronounce, we've stuck by it because it actually captures what we do and what we stand for.
It's pretty looking too. I mean, I would stick by it. You know,
Thank
even
you.
if it's hard to pronounce for some people. I mean, they get over it.
Yes.
It's actually pretty easy to spell too after you see it. So
Yes.
you know, I think it's a beautiful name.
Yes, and if I may add, our logo is actually a handmade ladder, which signifies ascension and growth and quest for the girls. But it's also handmade because it signifies the way that part of Africa is made, which is we do what we have to do to survive.
Yeah.
And it's not your Home Depot ladder, which is a great ladder, by the way. But this is an African-made ladder. So yeah, that's
made by hand. I
yes,
like it.
That's our
I
logo.
like it. Well, so tell me. So in your bio, you talked a little bit about, you know, you made this career change, and while you're contemplating this, you're really reflecting on your upbringing with your grandmother and your mother specifically,
Yes.
as it connects to fashion. Tell me a little bit about your childhood and both of those women.
So my grandmother was born in 1901 in Senegal, and in terms of education first, she was blessed with the opportunity to go to school and to college in the 1920s, which was rather uncommon back in Senegal, back in Africa as well, of all. And she had 9 kids.
Wow.
And her last child, which is my mother, was able to, by virtue of natural evolution, when mothers go to school, kids end up having a higher proclivity to go to school as well. So my mother also was able to attend college and also grad school in pharmacy. And as a child, when I was growing up, she's the one that always was into fashion. And luckily, our closeness allowed me to be able to participate in dressing her when she went to soirees or receptions. And it went like this. She'd say, "Eric, look, I have to go to this event tonight. How do I look?" And I'll be like, "So I think that the belt is great, but the hat could be replaced."
How old were you when you were giving your mom fashion advice like this?
I'd say as a teen, maybe 12, 13, 14.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
But you don't know then that it means more than it means, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so if it taps into part of who you are, you hardly want to embrace it because it's more of a hobby back then. But it marked me. So yeah, I was lucky. I mean, she was very open, very progressive, but also very focused on fashion.
Yeah.
So those two elements played a big part in our lives, my siblings as well as myself.
Got it. I want to back up a little bit in your
Sure.
story. You said a word, your mom got to go to school. Talk about that. So the African culture, women going to school, give us a little context on like why it was a privilege for her to go to school.
Sure. So back in the 1920s, I think only 5% of the women's population was able to attend school. And it came to a point where not going to school was not even an option based on how she was raised by my mother. And that kind of inculcation comes in very handy. So my mother, who realized that being in school gave you the chance to be very emancipated, also developed self-esteem, also developed a sense of empowerment through your community. She realized early on that school could be one of the only options available to her. And so as a kid, my siblings and I did not view life outside of education. Education was a rather big part of it. And the way she viewed education as well was such that there was no clear ceiling as to what one could achieve. we were raised mainly by my mother, and I mean, it wasn't easy in that. Listen, you had to go to college and grad school if you could. Her daughters, my sisters, luckily were able to also attend undergrad and grad school, one in Paris, one in London. And it wasn't even an option to discuss at home.
Right.
It was just like, look, go get some water. It was just like going to grad school.
Go read a book.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And Senegal, luckily enough, was colonized. Well, luckily, that's debatable. Senegal was colonized by France. So there was a high degree of intimacy, culturally, socially, between France and our country, where France was an option for us to go to school and eventually to even live there. And so my mother realized that there was an opportunity for her kids to also attend school. But for her, as well as my father, who also attended school in France as well, it offered a much higher ceiling, if you will. I mean, I can recall stories whereby there was an exam that had to be passed. This was the last exam before you could attend college, and it's one that if you don't pass it, you can't even go to college or even go to France to go to school. And that exam is about 14 classes, if you will, or topics, and I think the passing grade is about 25% nationwide. And if you fail it, you have to pass it over again, which takes another year.
Yeah.
My mother would prep us 3 years before. So she'd say, Eric, look, this is it.
It's not an option for you not to pass.
Don't make me look bad in this neighborhood.
Yeah.
This is about us too.
Yeah.
So it was it was important to her, and we are ever thankful to her for that.
So she was instrumental in you pursuing what you started out pursuing, which was investments and like kind of the thing that probably everybody's kind of told to do it or pursue at this point. When you shifted to fashion, how did that? Is she supportive? Is she still?
Well, she passed away before that happened, but immigrants don't come to the U.S. to major in art or to major in philosophy.
Do you think she's turning around up there, Eric?
Right?
Yeah.
So for us, it was, Eric, listen, medicine, law, a business.
Yeah.
And as a kid, I think either through your family's wishes or through your own ego, or as a need or means to want to please who loves you the most, you end up having to displace your own happiness and put their happiness onto you. And so it becomes your life becomes one where you don't even know what you like, but you know that you like something that pleases someone that you love.
Yeah.
So I had to pay my dues.
Yeah.
I came in here, I went to school, I went to college, I went to grad school. I spent time in finance.
Yeah.
Didn't know that I didn't like it because that's how deeply immersed I was in that thought process. And while having to suppress the fact that I knew that wasn't my route, my path, voices, actually Steven Spielberg calls it a whisper. And we've developed the ability to suppress them very well. And they make sense to be suppressed, because if you don't, then it comes out of you.
Yeah.
You have to face the fact that something else matters more than what you've been doing. So
Which is scary.
Yes,
it's like it means new venture.
Yes.
Yeah.
And society doesn't really, it's not meant to give you that kind of way of thinking, if you will. So when I got tired of doing finance, it took me about a year or two, even more, to want to deconstruct however I was so well constructed, to give myself a chance to give more honor to that whisper, if you will, to that voice. which I mean seems like you are you are so versed.
I'm very familiar with that voice. Or maybe too familiar.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yes, please.
Well, what's interesting though, you're still being influenced by her, because like when you when you talked about your early childhood memory with her and like dressing her for soirees and events, this connection through fashion is also honoring your mother in a way. Like it's bringing it.
Yes,
yeah.
But I think as equally important, she probably would be saying to me, "Well, is that it? Just fashion? Like this is this your goal in life?
Yeah.
Not that fashion alone is not a worthy endeavor to pursue, but I knew that going in that I had to find something that would make sense if attached to it. Yeah. And so to your point, yes, she'd be happy, but happier knowing that it would have some higher service, which, as we discussed earlier, how do you honor who you are?
Yeah.
And you wouldn't be who you are if your grandmother hadn't said, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
In an environment that wasn't quite open to her doing it.
Yeah.
So I'm not going further than I mean, I'm answering the question that you probably haven't asked yet.
Yeah.
But
go for it.
Okay.
Are you reading my mind? Eric's reading my mind. I have an intuitive guest today. Go for it.
So
if it's not the question, I'll throw everyone at you.
So when fashion came about, I knew that something had to be attached to it, and I felt like education, which is what has had the biggest impact in my life through the woman in my life, could be attached to it. And so we felt that looking for a smart way to have it be involved with what we were doing made more sense. But at the end of the day, I believe in a smile from the afterlife, a nod, which is actually a bit emotional, but a smile from the afterlife saying to you, I got this. Yeah. That makes sense now.
Yeah.
And my vision is that, from wherever they are, right? They are saying, all right, this kid now makes more sense.
He listened to us.
Right?
He really did.
Exactly.
I think I can hear it now.
Yeah. And, I mean, being of service, of course, as we all know, is about people that are around you and after you. And people that currently have the highest need in terms of attention, I believe, are young girls in developing countries, in so many regards. A couple of statistics. There's about 65 million girls currently that aren't in school overseas. There's about 10,000 young girls that are being given in forced marriage every day. That's over 1 million girls a month. The IMF and the World Bank have said that one of the only ways to get a country out of poverty is to get its girls educated, which, I mean, logically, mathematically, it makes sense. If half of your population is made of women and girls, having them be in school makes more sense, right? But they are very deeply...
And it's not a thing, like guys boys are always put into school. It's weird that there would be a option for girls. There's no option for boys, right? Boys in these same areas, they go to school.
Yes, but there's a cultural reason why. And so far for me, the need to bash or speak badly on the people who don't do what I think they should do. Back in the day, if you had your own village and your own farm, it made more sense, and I put it in quotes, to have the girls not be in school, because in case you were to want to have them marry someone, you get a dowry in exchange. Whereas when your boy marries someone, they actually have to give something away.
Yeah.
And also parents felt as though girls were more apt to doing chores better than guys. I saw the look on your face.
I just rolled my eyes.
Yes. So, I mean, there's a slew of reasons as to why.
But that reasoning is the reasoning why I refuse to learn how to fold a fitted bed sheet. I'm like, I will never be as domesticated as knowing how to fold that thing perfectly. Like, who does that?
Yes, right? Yeah.
That's how I resist domestication.
So, I mean, and luckily things have been changing. Certain international organizations have made it a point and a focus to to be more involved. And things have gotten better. I mean, girls now, there's a higher amount of girls in school than ever, right? And I still think that we aren't far enough. We could do more, and more is being done. You know, the country, the Africa has about 54 countries overall, and I'd say all of them need that kind of focus. Then you have the Caribbean, then you have Latin America as well, and then you have Asia. So our efforts, our goals, you know, don't stop just at Africa. We want to be able to do work in the rest of the world.
Got it. Well, so there's two parts. If you're listening, there's two parts to your line. Obviously, the girls' artwork that's on every piece, and then the line itself. So let's come back to the girls.
Sure.
And let's just talk about the line.
Sure.
Tell how do you usually describe it? You know, what are the pieces in the line? What do they represent to you?
So, selfishly, the most of what we do are inspired by how I dress my mother and what she used to also wear. And I got to say this, she'd take me shopping as well when she'd go buy new clothes. So, you know, I was a rather present person in that regard. And subconsciously, I think that what I'm into and what I like represents what I think she'd say, Eric, I think this makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, speak about being a mother's boy here. This is I'm realizing how much of her is in me. So it's a rather sophisticated, upscale fashion line, and the reason being is because, to me, there has to be an equal amount of, if you are going to honor young girls, there's got to be a way to also have a fashion line that speaks to, okay, this actually, there's enough of a quality and enough of a style that can speak to how much honor we have for the work that we're doing for the girls. And for some of the clothes, there's a bit of a European influence because we were raised and the way we would dress outside of the traditional garments in Africa. Most of what we were about in fashion came from Europe. And it's hard, but it's for me to dissociate part of who I've been with part of what I'm trying to create. So upscale, dressy, comfortable, and not necessarily abiding by the fashion trends, which I think can be a disservice, and having the audacity, if you will, or being comfortable saying, we'll do what we think makes more sense.
Yeah. I also, so you want to hear my interpretation of the line?
Please.
I also see it as a celebration of women, you know, so I think if you're going to support young girls, like, you have to support the women they're going to be in, and I see that in your line. So there's a lot of body conscious, you know, beautiful dresses that, you know, fit the form, whatever that form may be, which is cool. You know, it's like we shouldn't be, you know, covering things up, you know, like if you got it, work it, you know, wear it. But then I also see things like this that are, you know, so soft, by the way. This jacket is incredibly soft that, like, just feel feminine. They're meant to drape on a woman's body. You know, it's a good, versatile piece. It's made really well. You know, so I definitely get the European influence in it, but I also see this, like, celebration of women in the dresses and the forms that you've put in the line as well. And
if I may add to that, and thank you for that, by the way. I'm of the school of thought that societies have told women for so many years, you can't be who you think you are, you can be who you think you want to be. That has been bought in, right? And we would like to be able to be the brand that says to you, we embrace who you are, right? And furthermore, we hope to be able to be the brand that tells you that, you know, it's okay for you to be able to get closer to who you think you might be like. And through fashion and through the shape of our clothing as well, we'd like to be able to be someone that reminds you of that. So yes. Yeah, that makes sense. I can see that in it. And you can't, I mean, each piece has this cool piece of artwork where it's, you know, whether it's low around the waist or on the bottom, you know, on a hemline or something. So you can't, as a woman, wear this and have not, and
and not have at least a couple people go, tell me more about that. Like there's something here, there's energy here
Yes.
that opens up a dialogue for a woman to talk about why she chose that piece of clothing. And,
Yes.
you know.
And in case it wasn't made clear as well, so the premise of the line is based on this. We get some young girls to get into artistic activities, and those are defined by having the girl sketch and design some drawings. We then take them and we get them embroidered on our fashion. And so each of our garments is featured with a piece of art that's been sketched out by a young girl.
Can you tell me more about this piece that I'm wearing?
So
the girl, the artwork itself.
So many of what we do is based on art that we think is attached to the girls. It can also be based on our first line, for instance, was based on photos taken by the girls, which we then use as a way to feature on our fashion.
Got it.
And those photos were taken by the girls to the girls. So you saw some of the girls' faces actually featured on our clothings. There's a very meticulous process when it comes to featuring the designs on our clothes. The clothes have to sell, right? As altruistic as people might be, they just won't buy a piece of clothing that they won't buy because they don't like the way
it represents them.
Exactly.
They see something in it, they want to, they identify with it.
Yes. So the process involves making sure that the positioning of the sketch matches the style of the dress. The size also of the sketch also matches it, which is huge. I've been told bluntly, I'm not going to wear this. I love what you stand for, but I'm not going to wear this.
Eric's saying size matters, ladies. That's what he's saying. And it does. And we'll just stop right there because we're both blushing.
So, yes. I've lost my train of thought.
It happens sometimes. But it's a process of like picking the right art for the right piece. I mean, this is a really high-end embroidery too. I mean, it's not going anywhere. It's not going to de-thread or kink up. It's not going anywhere.
Yes.
And if it's too women, I'm going to help you out. Like we don't want to put something too big on an area that we're trying to de-emphasize. So you probably had to work through some of those things.
I've learned.
Yeah.
I've learned. Trust me. I friends of mine who weren't as coy have told me bluntly, look, I don't know what you were thinking about this one, but this is not going to work. And I mean, it's a trial and error, right? It's a new concept, and we've learned, we have gotten better at it, and we think it's a viable concept as well. Yeah. So, yeah.
Love that. So we've talked about the line, we've talked about the girls. What's been what have you learned from the girls and just working with them?
So, I mean, for me, there are two aspects to the brand, right? So one is educational and financial. But what matters most to me is this. If a girl from, let's say, Kenya saw you through a video that we would have shot here in LA, saw you, Stephanie, wearing a garment that she would have been involved in creating, what I hope it does is this. When you realize that you were told for so long that your life wasn't as valuable by your society, even mothers as well, because they also have bought into that same notion. When they see you and they go, well, hang on, I've done this. I've helped create this brand. Yeah. And what I hope it does is that it shifts psychologically and emotionally the way you saw yourself as. And it's a very, very contagious emotion, one that we hope can be disseminated in your environment. That to me matters more than education, because once you know you can, you go farther.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Whereas being told that you now have a chance to be educated. So that kind of faith, that kind of self-empowerment to me is what I'm after. And that's very much achievable through
Absolutely.
a relationship between the girl in question and
So it doesn't just, it starts and ends with the girls. Like they do the art, they get to see it, money comes back to help them with education. Like it's a full circle around the education and the empowerment of these girls.
Yes.
That's fantastic.
Yes.
So what have you learned about the fashion business through this? Because this really is your first entry in fashion officially, right?
There's a great quote, I think, that I can share with you that could capture that. It says, passion at one point will disappear. Discipline must take over. And I say this to say that...
Discipline?
Yes.
Discipline.
To say that it's a very exciting, vibrant world that I've gotten to learn. One where there's a great amount of saturation. However, we belong to a world called socially responsible fashion, which is growing at a much faster pace than any other. And there's a demand for it as well. Tom's actually symbolizes part of what we do and who we are. And their success has demonstrated the fact that there's a great appetite for what we do. And it gives us solace in that things are going to get better and brighter. So my view don't particularly reflect fashion overall, but it's more contextualized and it is based on ethical fashion. And that particular space of fashion to me is very exciting and has a great chance to be as big as it can ever be. And that makes me super happy.
Me too. I like the idea of people thinking more, putting more thought into everything that they buy and knowing like where it came from, who's benefiting from it. I think there's too much goods and too much wasted goods. That if we just focused on like, what are we really doing with this, and where does it start? Is it environmentally friendly, and where does it end up?
Yes.
That's a great place to put some attention to.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's been thousands of companies in this space that have just emerged.
Yeah.
And not just in the US, but internationally. And that village is one that's eager, earnest, very ambitious, and one whose passion is also present. So my first quote pertained to fashion of all, where you have to be able to get up and do what you want to do, because passion is hard to sustain. But in our particular space, luckily, because of who we fight for, it makes it easier to want to get up in the morning and do what you think you must do.
Makes a lot of sense to me.
Yes.
Putting a little extra heart energy into that. I can't relate to that at all. All right. Well, I have one more question, and then we're gonna switch gears a little bit. What's your ultimate dream with this, Eric? Where do you want to see the line go? Or
our goal is to put to school 1 million girls in school over the next 15 to 20 years. It's achievable through successes in the US, sales-wise, as well as internationally. I used to say that it was too lofty an ambition, but I wouldn't be here if I thought that doing what I'm doing would be too lofty of an ambition. So being able to say proudly in 10, 20 years from now that we were able to humbly be involved in a girl's ability to be in school in the US, in college, and what her presence was able to mean to her community would make me smile. I'm gonna finish this life doing this. I never knew that I'd be this blessed. Had you told me back in finance, in 5 years, Eric, you see what you'll be doing, I'll say to you, my acid reflux is about to kick in because of you.
Your acid reflux, is
Yes.
that what you said? It sounds so much more charming when you say it, Eric, than
So,
Yeah.
so please let me be right now.
Yeah.
And it speaks to how blessed I've become in this space, and my goal is to be able to be of service and to do it smartly, and having the great resources that we need to have, and the great staff, and the passion is there. And again, our space is one that's very much willing to provide help for each other, right? Because of what we stand for. And Million Girls.
A million girls.
Yes.
I like it.
Yeah.
A million girls.
Yes.
Hopefully I get to interview again when that happens. A million girls.
I'll be here early.
You'll be here early.
Early.
All right. Well, we're going to switch gears a little bit just to wrap up our last few minutes in the show. So there's two things that I talk about on Relatable, Eric, that in regards to relating and communication. One is there's always more information available. And the second thing is, at any given time, the circumstances of how we're relating can change. And so we're going to demonstrate a little bit of both right now. When I say there's more information available, we've heard about Eric and his childhood and what he's passionate about, and you can see it and hear it. I can feel it in this room. But let's see what else we can find out about Eric. And how we're going to do this is I'm going to go to my fun little table topic box and just randomly pull out a question. And I have no idea what the question's going to be. Could be silly. It's never serious.
Okay.
It's always silly. I've never got this card. I use this at dinner parties. I've never got this card. And maybe you don't. You may have one, you may not. What's your favorite dirty joke?
On air?
Yeah, we can say anything. Do you have one? You can pass. But
Look.
we don't want them to.
Mother is watching.
Your mother's watching?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. No.
No. He's like, no. I am sitting next to a true gentleman who will not tell. But you know what? The box is really persistent. And so the next question is, what is the wildest party you've ever been to? That's the question.
Stephanie.
It's the box. It's not me.
So I've been to parties. This is bad. I've been to some actually a party in Hollywood where, they had animals roaming around the house.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about snakes.
Oh my gosh. What was the theme of the party? He doesn't even want to tell me the theme. He doesn't want to tell me the theme.
So
Just say the theme and we'll move on. I'll stop asking.
think of it as being a jungle theme.
Okay. It was a jungle theme.
Yeah. I can't believe I'm saying this on air. But no, so it was a party where...
Was there nudity?
Excuse me?
Was there nudity at the party?
Is that English? Is that French? What?
Nudity? Naked people?
No, there was not any of that.
Okay.
No.
Just animals
Just animals.
and people acting like animals.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll leave it at that because it's making you uncomfortable. So
Well, no, it's just that my level of mannerisms now is being tested.
All right.
I'll answer anything else though.
You'll answer anything else?
Yeah. Just
Okay. You'll probably answer this one. What's the best excuse when you've been pulled over for speeding?
accent.
Your accent, you just
Well, it's. I bet you want to get be pulled over this weekend, and so it's. I'll tell you a story.
Okay, tell me a story.
My cousin, and I won't say his name, got pulled over in college.
Yeah.
And we come from the same environment. We speak French fluently. It's our first language, and I think he may get this. But he got pulled over. The officer says to him, "Sir, I need to get your ID." And my cousin turns into someone whose language is based on the back in Africa,
Uh-huh.
to the point that the officer goes, "You know what? I can understand you. I'm gonna give you a pass because I can't even relate to you. He got off.
He got off. So he just.
He literally coined a language that didn't exist.
Oh, jeez.
But he utilized the notion that the person couldn't have understood that, which is what happened.
Yeah.
And he got off.
He got off.
Yes.
So women we've heard cry, and men invent accents. That's the conclusion of getting out of speeding.
Yeah.
All right, I will not ask you any more
questions?
Any more silly questions. I'm going to ask you a big question.
Okay, sure.
Because this is another way we get to know the guest here on Relatable. So we're going to leave in the show on a segment I call Heartswell.
Okay.
And the concept behind Heartswell is to have each guest share something, share a deep desire and kind of attribute that desire to someone. So, you're thinking of someone specific that you want to say something to. It could be you just want to honor them and say, you've meant a lot to me. It could be something about around a new goal or commitment to a person. It could be thanking them. It could be an act of forgiveness. It could be anything but the point is to really deeply share something, look directly at the camera and say the person's name and just say your heartswell to them. And the reason why I do this, and I think you'll connect with me on this based on what you've shared today, is, I believe that as we share what's going on, the deep desires in our hearts, it makes it easier for other people to do the same, because sometimes it's a little tough. And in doing that, we just raise the level of empathy in the world. So that's why I do it here.
Sure.
Do you have someone in mind?
Do you want to start, or should I
I don't usually share, but I have shared before. If you need me to stall for time.
But for me, if I may, there's a sense of strength that I've gathered from my mother. Mm-hmm. One that I still haven't fully understood, in that, the older you get, hopefully the more enlightened you also are. There's a sense of elevation emotionally that I've been able to draw from her. But it's one of empathy. Mm-hmm. It's one of presence. It's one of love, that through this new endeavor, I've realized was achievable. The switch of personality that I've endured brings me back to and closer to who she is. And I didn't know it was possible. And I'm thankful for it. It moved me. I now understand things that might have been a bit ambiguous as a kid. And it's amazing how having the courage to adopt a new lane that speaks to you brings you back around to that person that gave you the biggest inspiration. Mm-hmm. And I'm just starting. Mm-hmm. I'm just starting. And luckily, I'm able to do a bit of honor through it, while selfishly also gathering things that I need to grow. Mm-hmm. And it's that 360 cycle. Yeah. And it goes back to the nod. I'll say one thing that my mother also used to share. If things happen to you that were great, right? She'd say, now listen, kiddo. And this is as a way to mitigate, how the amount of elation that you had. She'd say, look now, when the gods start clapping, you better start dancing, right? And it meant it's not about you, give like whatever you have had that's good to you, someone next to you needs it more than you. And again, I'll say it very, I think better. She'd say, when the gods start clapping, you better start dancing. Put on some rumba, some salsa, some tango, some country music, and get to it. Yeah. So again, it's to answer the question, it's being able to fully own part of what I was given, but didn't know it was there. And then turn around and giving him a salute to my mother and my grandmother as well.
There's so much in there. Like, thank you for sharing that. There's so much lesson in there. It's like I'm hearing, when you connect to spirit, like this is triggering me in my grace side. Like when you connect to that and you feel like somebody's celebrating or spirit is celebrating around you, yeah, you could celebrate that too, but don't stop there. Like it just keeps going. Like there's more to, the destination and the journey is bigger than, or the journey is always bigger than the destination.
Yes.
And you're just constantly on it. It's kind of cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love that.
Well, thank you.
I love that.
Thank you.
Well, that does bring it. Went by fast, right?
It did, yeah.
That does bring us to the end of this show. I'm so thankful that you joined us today, Eric. I'm going to spell the website so you don't hear me mispronouncing this beautiful French word. And of course, if you watch the archive later on YouTube or iTunes, you'll see it. It's going to be on screen with Eric's name.
Sure.
But so you can find out more about the line. It's spelled LEDESSEIN.com. And you can follow the line on Twitter by the same name and Facebook and Instagram as well, right?
Yes. So if you go on Instagram or you go on Twitter, Facebook, if you type in the name, it should come up.
It should come up.
L-E. I'm sorry, that's French.
yeah, L-E. You're gonna.
Thank you.
That sound does not spell L-E.
But you see what happened?
Yeah.
This conversation is just took me there.
Yeah.
So I apologize. LEDESSEIN as in Nancy, and any of these social media tools would show the brand.
Well, lovely.
Yes.
You can find them there. And as mentioned, my Gracist shirt can be purchased at dreamalive.store. And right after the show, I'll tweet both of these out so you can find out and be fashionized by the inspiration that we had today on the show. And that is it for this week. Next week, I'm going to have two friends on, Jessica and Jeff. They're actually mutual friends of ours.
Oh, lovely.
They've agreed to go and do a Renaissance repatterning session. It's something that I really believe in, and I wanted to talk about it. And I thought the best way to do it would bring two people that are new to it on and talk about their experience. And then I will share more about what this particular practice has done for my life. So I'm really excited about that. It's been really meaningful and helpful for getting through lots of things in my life. So looking forward to sharing that with everybody. As always, you can connect with me, have questions about the show, questions about Eric. You can find me on Twitter at Love More Now and Instagram at Relate with Steph. And we do have another public shared experience coming up at the Relational Center. That's Sunday, March 26th. That's just an evening of feel-good relating where really, as I said earlier in the show, like I facilitate grace. I'm doing things in a sequence to bring out some inspirational moments between people, and that's what we do at those events. So please put that on your calendar and join us there. Until next Tuesday, goodbye and happy relating to everyone.
Thank you.
You're listening to Relatable with Stephanie Michele, only on LA Talk Radio.